This is the calm before the storm. And if you aren't paying attention, what's about to take place in the entire crypto market will have you shocked and in disbelief. And maybe the current prices might seem high, but here in the very near future, they're going to get a lot higher, and you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot if you don't pay attention. So if you hold Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, or Dogecoin, you're gonna wanna watch this video. This is going to be a very technical analysis heavy video, which means if that's not your style and you're more so focused on the news, I'm not gonna be covering any news in this video. What I'm focused on is the charts, the price, and in my opinion, the price is king. The price tells you what's going to happen before even the news does, because insiders are the people that are getting access to this news, and then what they do is trade on that inside information, which usually tends to pump the price or dump the price if it's negative news. You start to see it on the chart first, and then it follows through a day or two or even a week later where we actually have the reason as to why a pump or a dump occurs. So that said, right now, Bitcoin is already sitting at $118,000. And again, at the end of the year, I think that's going to look really cheap relative to the prices that we see at the end of the year. And yes, I'm going to give you some price targets and predictions on most of these cryptos, while we're also looking at a $3,600 Ethereum. What's really interesting is that this thing was struggling at that 2,000 to 2,200 range for quite some time, and then just rallied like crazy. XRP not too far behind it at a 23% gain for a new all-time high. I get it. So many people talk about the Coinbase all-time high of 384. Their data is whack. That's based on the Korean won, on the kimchi premium. But even David Schwartz himself came out and straight up said you couldn't actually sell on any US exchange for 384 back in 2018. So no, that's not the real price. The real actual all-time high price was $3.66 just a few days ago. Solana sitting at $177 and is actually really kind of lagging the market, which is shocking to me because it tends to lead. And then we have Dogecoin back to 25 cents. I think this is one of the easiest plays of the decade. Actually, all of these cryptos I'm mentioning because I believe they're going to do really well here in the near future. And right now might just be the perfect opportunity to either buy these at a dip or a range right before a pivot point where they break out. So not only will I be covering these cryptos and the charts, but I'll also be covering the liquidation maps, which can give us key insights into futures traders and what they're actually doing with their portfolio over the upcoming short period of time, as well as diving onto an actual chart, again, on Coinblast, talking about open interest, how to track and measure this stuff, whether or not we're in a healthy trend, and then also to look at the liquidations that have recently occurred across Bitcoin, XRP, and many others. So stay tuned, because this one video could very well set you up to have a portfolio that will change your life in the future. And I really mean that. Most people are going to fumble their bag this bull market cycle. They're going to sell way too early, or they're going to hold on way too long and round trip that bag right back down to where they started. I've seen so many people make these mistakes over and over and over again, and my goal in this video is to help you to not only mitigate those risks, but to extract as much money as possible. And we're going to do that by showing you what I'm seeing on the charts. And again, everything take with a grain of salt. Ultimately, you're in charge of making your own financial decisions. None of this is financial advice. I'm just here to share my expertise and opinions with you. So that said, be sure to stick around until the end. And also, as an urgent announcement, today, right now, is your very last chance to register to join us on our 3-day live call, or webinar series, I should say, where we teach you how to put your crypto to work for you to earn passive yield and income on it, no matter what the market conditions are. And you can find that link right down in the description or the pinned comment below. This is going to be your daily cash flow machine, whether or not the bull market continues to rally through the end of the year and into 2026. Again, nobody knows where the market's going, but we're going to do our best job to cover it live with you so you have the best shot possible at succeeding this bull market cycle. However, even if that wasn't the case, you can still take advantage of the strategies that we're going to share with you on this live event starting July 20th, today at 7 p.m. Eastern time, which is 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you just click that link and register right here. And really quickly, here is a short video of our very own Nick Anderson sharing with you what this event is going to be like.
Hey, what's up, my friend? Nick here. Quick heads up for all you smart investors watching this. If you love to see your crypto actually working for you, earning passive income every single day on your coins, we're putting together something really cool. On July 20th, we're running our first ever free online event challenge. It's called the Crypto Passive Cash Flow Challenge. And it's basically 3 days where you'll learn our DeFi strategies we use to safely earn passive yield on our coins 24/7, even while we sleep. And some people are doing crazy numbers with this strategy alone. And if you had some coins that you're just holding on to, you should join us and discover how to put them to work. We've never done anything like this publicly before, and we probably won't ever do it again. So it's completely free, but we might have to limit spots to keep the quality high and give everyone proper attention with the size of our YouTube channel, over 360,000 subscribers now. So if you want in, just click the link below this video, grab your spot while you can, and now back to the video.
So be sure to click that link directly in the description below to see this page and register right now before the live event this evening. So let's get this video started. And as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the channel, my friend. If you're new here, my name is Paul, and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDefi, PAULIEDEFI. Before we begin this video and dive into the charts, I want to focus on this one bull market peak indicators page from CoinGlass. They have a lot of really cool tools, but what's really nice about this tool in particular is the fact that it shows all sorts of different indicators and models that typically tend to point to whether or not we are actually at a top on Bitcoin. And again, all models are right until they are wrong. In other words, take everything with a grain of salt. But when you have a lot of models that are pretty consistently on point or accurate, maybe it's helpful to take into consideration, maybe 80% of these are starting to peak off or say that we're close to a top. Then it would be time to start taking profits off the table. As of right now, you can see that virtually all of them, whether it's the Pi Cycle Top Indicator, something that I covered in my last video, Puel Multiple, the Bitcoin Rainbow Chart, which I don't really love, the MVRVZ score, which is quite an interesting tool. Across the board, virtually all of these are somewhere in the mid-range, and a few of them, for example, like Bitcoin Dominance, is in the upper range. But generally speaking, when all of them start to come into this 80 to 100% plus, this tool right here is going to start to tell you we're getting closer and closer to a Bitcoin cycle top. And whenever Bitcoin tops off, we might experience a bit of an altcoin rally. Right now, everything in the market's kind of cooled off and is actually sold off a little bit. For example, Bitcoin pumped to like 123,000, currently sitting at about 118,000. XRP pumped to like 266, currently sitting at about 239 to 242 in that range. And I think we might continue to see a slight amount of selling before we rally for some new local highs. But generally speaking, we have to take this into consideration that the market can continue to rally, because virtually none of these indicators are screaming cycle top. And again, if we see a cycle top on Bitcoin, we would have probably about a month, maybe 2 months, where money will rotate into altcoins, and then we'll experience a full-blown altcoin season. However, I thoroughly expect Bitcoin to maintain its dominance this bull market cycle. I can't see a situation in where Bitcoin won't go back below maybe 50% market dominance, which means if we have $1 trillion in the market, 500 billion would be in Bitcoin, and then 500 billion would be split across all of the major altcoins and even all of the crap coins. So that said, let's dive into the charts. As you can see here, I'm going to look at Bitcoin first, and then I'm going to do analysis on XRP, Ethereum, Solana, and Dogecoin, the tokens that we're talking about in this situation. And again, like I said, this is seems to be the calm before the storm, and something that you might want to take advantage of, because if you do not, or you make some mistakes or take profits too soon just because of one last little dump over here, you're going to be kicking yourself, wishing you had accumulated or added to that position into a full-blown bull market top cycle. That said, On a daily time frame, I tend to use the 10 and 20 EMA. These seem to be really good supports and resistances, something that I've consistently shared and trained in Altcoin Pro University. But notice right here, this blue line is the 10 EMA. Bitcoin not only broke down for a local low right here back in June 22nd to about $98,000. But what you'll notice is really interesting is that we were in a descending wedge or triangle, right? We had a series of lower highs and lower lows. Then what happened is Bitcoin turned over. And as you can see here, not only did it break above this descending wedge, but it actually put in a new higher low for the very first time at about $105,000. Now, in this situation and on this breakout, you still have to be a bit weary because it's possible we could have experienced a bear trap, or excuse me, a bull trap, and seeing the market continue to dump a little lower. But that's not what happened, right? We actually saw quite a bit of support right here at that 10 and 20 EMA as we crossed back over sometime on June 26th and 27th. So this would have been your first indicator. Maybe this thing is ready to rally. Now, you don't have 100% confidence right here, but what made me far more confident is the fact that we maintained the 10 crossover the 20 EMA, which is the orange line, and we were supported both above this horizontal, or excuse me, not horizontal, I keep saying that, this trend line and at the 10 and 20 EMA. So when we saw this date right here, this one single July 9th of 2025, this was a good indicator that this market was ready to move for some new highs. And you'll notice it came right back into the prior all-time high. But this one candle was a strong indicator, enter the market. And the rest of the market really rallied and followed. Now, when you combine that with volume, if I were to use the replay tool right here, you can see that volume was even below average, and I'll go ahead and increase the size of that. You see the volume bars pretty below average, this blue and white line down here, very small amounts of money moving in the market, but into that break to the prior all-time high, we saw an increase in buy volume for these big green bars, which led me to believe that this trend was likely going to continue, much less the fact that we had a major green candlestick in a single day, pumped from about $110,000 or $11,000 all the way up to 116. So when you see increased volume like this on a break for a new high, that is total confirmation that this thing is ready to fly. And that would have been a good indicator that if Bitcoin is doing that, again, the rest of the market's likely going to follow. In the same period of time, Bitcoin dominance was still pretty high, although it's been losing dominance to a lot of altcoins, which leads me to believe that this is truly the calm before the storm. This is going to be a period of time where you can actually use it to accumulate these cryptos at cheaper prices than they were a few days ago before the next leg up. And you might have a week, you might have a few days, we might have a month. I don't know how long we'll chill in this range. I'm just very confident that we're likely going to continue to see new all-time highs on many of these cryptos, and arguably even just see a prior range high. So let's say Solana's prior range high was 290, currently sitting at 177. It's very much possible that Solana could rally right back up to 290 and sell off again because it's got so much room between those ranges, whereas an XRP already hit a new all-time high and is in price discovery mode, which leads me to believe that XRP is not only outperforming the market and is the dark horse in the race, but something that I'd like to buy more of, and I'd actually buy less of Solana. That is not me picking and choosing one or the other or telling you, hey, this is what you should do, but that's just my personal opinion. I like to bet on the dark horse in the race, the one that's already winning, the one that's showing relative strength while Bitcoin is doing well. Is it outperforming Bitcoin? Same with Ethereum, currently sitting at about $300, $3,600 recently, and about only $400 off its prior range high, while its all-time high came in 2021 at $4,800. So notice right here, growth in volume and expansion. And then we saw some follow through all the way up to a new high price of $123,000. Now, what you'll notice is really interesting is the market did sell off a bit. We got a large red volume sell bar, but notice where it dumped. It did not dump all the way back down to the prior range high over here, or all-time high, I should say, of $111,000, $112,000. It only dumped to the 10 EMA. And since that point in time, we've actually just been ranging. We're seeing no real breaks for some new highs. We're seeing a tightening in volume. This is textbook, okay, accumulation zone. We could see Bitcoin dump right back down to that $114,000 range on a daily time frame. And if that were to occur, I'd be buying anywhere between 114 down to 112. These ranges right here are going to be super premium buys before the next leg up. Again, notice how the volume is really starting to tighten up in this range. So a break above 119 should take us for some new all-time highs above 123. And again, if we see this happen on Bitcoin, we're likely going to see a lot of follow through and rally on the altcoin market. And then I'll do an analysis comparison, or a comparative analysis at the end of the video on all of these cryptos. Now let's dive over to XRP. The reason I'm doing XRP right now versus, let's say, an Ethereum as my second pick is because it has been outperforming Ethereum this entire bull market cycle. And I don't know if it will continue to, because I don't know what's going to happen. No one does. And if they tell you that, they're completely lying. But you'll notice that XRP really rallied quite strong on extreme expansion of volume and is actually seeing bigger green volume bars than red volume bars, which is a good indicator that yes, this move is not only strong, but a confirmed move. So when we came right back up, and what's crazy is typically Bitcoin took a little while to break above its previous all-time high, you'll notice XRP pumped straight through it in a single day and is now cooling off a bit, with its high being 366, currently sitting at 341. And so I expect XRP in this range to dump maybe back down to 330, potentially even back to that 10 EMA. But you'll notice not one single time in this entire rally did it dump back down or touch or range at the 10 EMA, which is this blue line. However, it's still very much a possibility. And so if XRP were to come back down to, let's say, 310 up to 320, then that would be a good range to accumulate, because that's our prior range high. Especially when you zoom out on a weekly time frame, you'll notice that on a weekly time frame, and again on the Coinbase chart it doesn't actually show it, but on the Bitstamp chart it does. And you can see right here our prior all-time high coming back into 2018 was in this range. So not only did we see a bit of sell pressure and a bit of a horizontal support right here at $1.90 to $2, but when you have a long strong range like this, typically it leads to a very strong breakout. This being our very first week we broke above for a new all-time high leads me to believe, on expansion of volume, that this thing is going to continue to rally, and we could easily see a $5 target here in the very near future. If you don't remember, the last time we broke above a range resistance, which was a horizontal at 64 cents back here, and we crossed over the 10 and 20 EMA, we rallied so freaking hard that people were shooting themselves because they did not enter this trade. And by the way, I don't actually mean shooting themselves, just really annoyed with themselves that they didn't take this trade, because maybe they were like, I don't want to FOMO, I don't want to get wrecked, I don't buy tops. But look at this, a 302% move in a single month. And so right now we are on week 2 into a breakout, and XRP, when it rallies hard. So we could easily see a $5 target here in the very near future, and I think we could see higher targets through the rest of the year. However, my accumulation zone would be somewhere between the 325 range down to the 312 range. Anywhere in there is going to be great to buy. And by the way, I also want to note that some people might get annoyed if they miss that because it continues to rally harder than I expect. Where I would be accumulating either way is back down to the 335 range. And upon a breakout, this is really what we're focused on. If you come over to the daily time frame, we would like to see a break above 348. If we break above 348 before we come back down, then that's going to be an indicator that this thing is ready to continue flying high. And so I would be buying at 348 just as much as I'd be buying down to 330, 325, and potentially even 312. Now, looking over at Ethereum, man, this rally has been really freaking strong in a very short period of time from that local low. We're talking not even 30 days. We've seen XRP rally off the bottom, not XRP, Ethereum rally off the bottom about 63%, which is massive. Imagine earning 63% in any one given year, much less a single month. And the reason I knew this thing was ready to fly was because we saw a pretty strong range of resistance right here at that about $2,700 range down to the $2,400 range. And so you'll notice we were in this nice little box. And by the way, I'll make it easier to see. All I got to do is take that border thickness down and then turn that down just slightly. And voila, we have a good little box range. And when we broke right here for the very first time, you'll notice we saw a bit of volatility below the range and above the range. This is classic textbook bull trap, bear trap scenario. But the moment we entered this range and came right back here, you'll notice right back up to the local high of $2,700, you'll see that we had some expansion in volume into this breakout. And so a break above 2730 up to 2800 led me to believe that this thing was ready to continue flying. And so many of our students over at altcoinpro.com, which is Altcoin Pro University, took advantage of this trade. And this was a great asymmetric trade. As you can see, there's been virtually no selling and only buying. And that's because most of the sellers who were going to sell Ethereum have already done so. Everyone has capitulated on Ethereum. It's been one of the most boring major markets of all time. And so now, because everyone's out, the only people left to do are buy. And so that's exactly what's occurring. And we're already back up to $3,600. And what's interesting is it's holding up better right now, even in this dip on Bitcoin and XRP, than both of them, even though XRP and Bitcoin look stronger. And the reason for that is because if you zoom out to that weekly time frame, you can see that the prior all-time high came in at $4,800. Our new local highs are sitting here at $4,000. So if we pump back up to that $4,000 range and break for one last time, this leads me to believe that this thing's going to fly at least to $6,000. But my personal target by the end of this bull market cycle would be bare bones minimum $10,000. So where do you accumulate something like this? Let's keep things simple. Right? It's very much possible and potential we break back down to somewhere here at the $2,700 range. And so if we do, notice on the weekly time frame, that's kind of where that 10 EMA is, and we just saw a crossover. But if I come down to the daily time frame, even if we come back down to $3,300, down to $3,000, that's where I will be accumulating. Okay, if this thing continues to rally up to $4,000 really hard and breaks above here on momentum and volume, which I don't think that's going to happen without a bit of cooling off first, then I'm also a buyer. But I'm a buyer down here at $3,300 to $3,000, and I'm also a major buyer at $4,000. A break above $4,000 is going to be extremely bullish. So I'm just hoping this thing comes back down into these ranges where I can buy more Ethereum before that next leg up. Now let's move on to Solana. So you'll notice that Solana is actually looking just as bullish as the rest of them. However, we're quite far off the all-time high on Solana, which came in at $295. And this was upon the news that Trump was going to launch his token on the Solana network. But as you'll see right here, we put in a major range low of $95 back in April. And since that point in time, we're back up to our prior range highs, which seem to be a pretty strong resistance between the range of $189 down to $175. Currently, we're sitting at about $177, and we have a series of higher lows, which is a confirmed uptrend. As you'll notice, here's our major low. We have a high here, a new low, a new high. So uptrend, right? Then we get an intermediate term downtrend right here to June 22nd. But generally speaking, whenever I see major range lows, in this case, we have a higher low right here. We're getting back up to our prior range high here. We saw a lot of resistance back here. We saw a lot of support here before breaking down. If we break above $185, this thing is going to soar. So yes, it's been lagging the market, but I could see this being easily a strong asymmetric risk to reward trade for at least 33% up to 244 and potentially back up to that prior high of 268 for a 46% move. But generally speaking, because this thing is lagging so much relative to, let's say, an XRP and not performing as well as Ethereum in the same period of time, it leads me to believe that this thing is a laggard. So it's not that it won't have its glory day in the sun. It's not that it can't rally for some new major all-time highs. It's just that this thing is very inflationary. A lot of tokens are consistently entering the market, creating a lot of overhead supply. And so the demand needs to be equivalent or greater in order for this thing to really rally and run, which is why this thing has been struggling below its range highs of $185, even when the rest of the crypto market is rallying really hard. You'll also notice that, yes, although we're seeing a lot of buy volume to the upside and an increase and an expansion, we're not seeing anything near that third standard deviation like we're seeing on XRP and Ethereum and even Bitcoin. So Solana needs some time. And if I were to be a buyer of Solana right now, I'm a buyer of it at above $185 confirmed close on a daily time frame, or back down again to that 10 and 20 EMA, 170 and even 160. Anywhere in those ranges would be a great time to buy Solana. Anything below there I think would be fine as long as we continue to remain in a bull market. So as long as we're in a bull market, even if this thing were to dump to, let's say, 148, totally fine. Sometimes you just get deeper dips, and if anything, that would look like a really good buy opportunity. Now, looking at Doge, I have a very long trend line here coming all the way back to October of 2023 if I get out of the way. Let me go ahead and actually remove this right here. You'll see right here we had a low. Then we had our next lows coming in September of 2024. Massive expansion in volume on the moves above the resistance here at 13 cents for a high of 48.5 cents. You'll notice we've yet to touch the all-time high, which came in 2021 when Elon Musk was talking a lot about it at 74 cents. But this bull market cycle, you'll notice consistently when it pumps, it rallies extremely hard. Very similar to XRP in that manner. And Doge is just a meme coin, but it is by far the largest meme coin. It's not lost its market share, its mind share. It's going to continue to grow. And guess what happened? Not only did we get supported at this major long-term trend line, we got supported yet again in April and again in June, and is now rallying right back up to its range resistance and highs here of about 25 cents. So a break above 25 cents, I think, is easily going to take us up to at least 48 cents. And this bull market cycle, we could easily see a dollar top on something like this, which would be about a 300% gain from here because we're at 20 cents, right? So if we hit a dollar, look, almost 281% from current prices. I think that is a massive and an easy play. And even if we hit the prior range high of 48 cents, that's still 74%, or even a 200% gain, about 175, up to the all-time high of 74 cents. But look at this, perfect expansion in volume, virtually no sell volume. I think this thing is ready to fly above 25 cents. Again, to keep things simple for the sake of this video, right back down here at 20 cents, I'd be a major buyer of something like Dogecoin. So with all of that said, in all of these situations, with every single one of the cryptos that I've mentioned, Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, Solana, and Dogecoin, we might just have another opportunity to buy in a healthy range where it retraces just a bit before that next leg up. And by the way, for many of these cryptos, something like Ethereum as it breaks above $4,000, or even XRP as it breaks for a new all-time high, this will literally be the calm before the storm. And by the way, that storm could take these things to prices that you are kicking yourself for not entering sooner, because some of the prices will be unbelievable. Now, that said, I've seen this every single bull market cycle. Many people sell way too soon. Many people hold on for way too long because they think, oh, a $10 XRP or a $15 XRP is still not the top and we're going higher. But then the top is eventually in, it retraces back down to $7, $3. And then I'm not saying it will. I don't know. All I'm saying is I've seen a lot of people give back those gains because they don't have a plan or a strategy to take profits. So the real question is, where do you take profits? Well, I would argue when you go over to CoinGlass and you actually see these bull market peak indicators start to reach into a range where it looks like it's becoming red and Bitcoin looks like it's topping off. And Bitcoin could top off somewhere at $175,000 to $250,000 this bull market cycle. I don't expect a 500K Bitcoin for another few years. So we could see a mega cycle that's unlike anything we've ever seen before, where it's a 6-year period of time instead of a 4-year period of time. But listen, I don't know. And since I don't know and nobody knows, the reality is just because I don't know doesn't mean that someone else knows. Nobody really knows. There's always going to be a few lucky people that call the top perfectly. But again, a broken clock is right twice a day. And those people tend to continue to brag about it and shout it from the mountaintops so everyone knows that they're the best trader on planet Earth and here, buy my stuff. At the end of the day, this is a better strategy. Watch for Bitcoin when it starts to get into this red zone, start to think about taking profits off the table on altcoins around the same time into a month later. Now, finally, what's going to occur over the next day or two? Well, here's the reality. We're coming into Sunday, and Sunday we tend to see in a bull market environment some rallies. So if we see breaks above those ranges that I gave you on every one of those cryptos, that's going to be really good. If not, then it looks like we might chill out for a little bit longer. We might have another opportunity to buy some dips, maybe some new local lows in those ranges that I mentioned, down to the 10 or even 20 EMA. But day traders right now are lining up to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and we can see it on the liquidation maps when we're looking at futures. I tend to go to the Bitcoin chart, I go to the 7-day time frame, I remove all the leverage, and as you can see right here, people seem to be short on Bitcoin to the tune of about $10 billion. On the long side, we have about $8.4 billion. So a bit more money's on the short side, which leads me to believe we're going a little bit lower before we break for some new highs. And this has been a good indicator this entire cycle, I've noticed. Wherever you have more money, by the way, on the green side, this is short. You can see that these are short liquidations, which means if Bitcoin pumps to $130,000, $10 billion is going to be lost by these traders. This tends to lead the market. I'm telling you, I've seen this 1,000 times over, and when more money's on one side, that's the side you typically want to bet on. I know it sounds counterintuitive because you're like, well, don't you want to be counter trend trader? Don't you want to trade against the herd? But I've noticed that this is a pretty good indicator. Now let's go ahead and look at the futures charts, or better yet, the open interest chart on Bitcoin. And right now you can see that into these rallies where we broke above about $110,000 and $12,000 right back here, open interest was seriously increasing, and it actually continued to increase all the way up to our new all-time high of $123,000. Since that point in time, we've seen a decline in price and a decline in open interest, which leads me to believe that shorts are now opening or piling into the market. That's also denoted by the amount of traders that would be liquidated if Bitcoin reaches new highs. So I'm pretty confident that we're likely coming back down to at least $116,000. And if you were to look at that chart I was showing you earlier, just go over to Bitcoin, to that potentially 20 EMA for $114,000. If we come back down to, let's say, $110,000 to $112,000, also going to be a phenomenal dip buying opportunity. Virtually all the cryptos that I mentioned are going to dip with it. And so that's going to be a good range to buy into before the next leg up, because everything from the charts that I'm looking at is screaming bullish, which means this truly is the calm before the storm. And so that's it for the video, folks. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe. Also, go to this link right here in the description below in order to learn how to safely turn your portfolio into passive daily cash flow, no matter what market we're in, whether it's a bull market or a bear market. This is a live 3-day event we're hosting starting today. If you're watching this video on Sunday, it starts today. By the way, if you're watching this video at any point after that, you can still register and join in on one of those future day calls. In other words, on the 21st, 22nd. And if at any point in time you're watching after that, we'll likely have a link to be added to a wait list where you can join at some point in the future if we decide to ever host another event like this. But again, it's absolutely free to join. All you have to do is click that link and register. And I hope to see you on the other side, my friend. Thanks so much for watching the video. Goodbye.